All right, those are all the startup stories, but focusing in then on the multi-million dollar opportunity in 5G, we talk with Tech Mahindra about their strategy, their deal pipeline, and the margin recovery and whether or not that's sustainable. Manoj Bhat is the CFO and he now joins in on the show. Thank you so much for taking time out and lovely to have you on the channel. To begin with, let's just talk about the kind of growth strategy that the company has set ahead of itself with all of this digital transformation that has been a clear focus on Next now. Can you just walk us through those details?
Good morning and thank you for having me on the show. I think if we look at our Next Now strategy, I think there are two or three elements. So first is as we are seeing many of our customers, and specifically because of the current COVID situation, I think there's been an acceleration in their digital imperative and digital initiatives. I think so from a lot of perspectives, we actually focus on the technology stack, on cloud, on data analytics, on the network change, which is 5G. And we are bringing that all together now to make sure that the acceleration and the pace on the digital transformation is something which we can continue to do at a pace where our customers are demanding that. So I think we are bringing it all together much faster, much more agile, and we are seeing that acceleration happening across multiple customers in multiple geographies.
Okay. And, how is the company looking to tap opportunity in 5G, cloud migration, platform? What's the game plan here?
So if we look at, and each of these areas is a very large market. So if you look at cloud, I think cloud penetration is something which is still very, very low as a percentage of the overall market. I think if you look at the infrastructure side, where there is public cloud, which is becoming more and more popular, and more of our customers are looking at how to make use of the scalability and the availability of the cloud technologies which are there. Then the other market which is emerging very strongly is a software as a service. And even there, I think is a huge market for implementation because many of our customers are going through that journey today. And that's something which we believe will be in the next few years. Both of these markets will continue to grow at a very fast clip. And we are seeing some of that already happen. I think the second theme which is driving that is also about the whole move towards online. And as you all know, what has happened in the last 6 months, I think it has covered more ground than sometimes the last 10 years in many of the markets. So I think that whole trend is actually driving that acceleration. The second theme is around when you get into this, I think more and more the ROI and the best targeted campaigns can be run by analytics, and these analytics are used for business decisions. And so data and analytics is a big part of our strategy in terms of how do we integrate it with what we are doing in terms of a systems transformation and then building a layer on top to actually help businesses take decisions very intelligently based on the data they have. And all of this will be enabled, we believe, with more and more communication and the shift towards a network technology change, which is 5G. And 5G, as you know, I think it's going to be a large phenomena which is global. What we believe is it's a 5 to 7 year market growth, which will be led by first the telecom providers moving to 5G technologies. And I think there is yesterday a comment by one of the Indian providers that it could be here within the next 12 to 24 months. So I think more and more of our customers are going to move to that technology. And we have already taken a position in terms of investments, in terms of our capability sets and our partnerships, in terms of how do we capitalize from this market. As I see it, I think while we are already doing some work for some of our customers, including Rakuten in Japan, but I think the big bump up in that market and big growth in that market will come in the next year. And so I think what we are seeing over the next 3 to 5 years is a combination of 2 or 3 themes. I think more cloud adoption across the board. The second theme is, of course, data and analytics. And the third theme is 5G. both on the telecom side as well as the enterprise side. So I think that's where I think we explained that to our investors also in our analyst day, which was held last week. So I think that's the broad theme which we are working on in terms of approaching the market as it evolves over the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. Margins have been a little volatile. Anish, talk to us about whether or not the margin recovery that we've recently seen is going to be sustainable.
So I think from our perspective, the short answer is yes. We feel that many of the initiatives we have done to change some of the volatility which was there in the past, and the reasons for the volatility we had explained was some of our large deals and the mega deals which we signed had some significant transition costs which impacted margins for 1 or 2 quarters, followed by, of course, COVID, where our margins dipped a bit because of that. But I think since then, I think we've seen a very sharp recovery in margins. I think our goal would be to get back to a mid-teen kind of EBIT level in the next year in F22. And I think wherever we have worked upon in terms of initiatives, I think many of them will be sustainable. So I think that's really our goal. How do we hit 15% EBIT margin F22? And I think as we are today looking at all the things we are doing, I feel that there's a very good chance of hitting that. And so to me, building sustainable margins is a key priority for us.
Okay. Growth expectations as well, they're still in single digits for FY22. So while there's acceleration, talk to us about the targets and why you still see them in single digits, how you're really anticipating things to evolve.
So while I think on growth, as there are 2 or 3 things which are happening. I think if I look at our funnels, they are at all-time highs in terms of some of the deal wins. I think after the dip in Q1, we are seeing that come back to normal. So I think there's a lot of normalization happening in terms of the deal flow and deal conversions. So the combination of very big funnels and normalization of decision making, I think should hold us in good stead going into next year, which will lead to an acceleration in growth going into next year. I think the one element which we clarified even in our investor meet was that I think the timing of 5G when it will come next year and which quarter it will come is also going to make an impact on the growth rate. So I don't have a specific number for you, but from our perspective, I think we would like to be at or above industry in terms of growth, at least on the enterprise side. And on the telecom side, I think it will depend a bit upon how soon 5G comes in terms of customers rolling that out, and then for us to capitalize on it and convert it into revenues.
Sure. Manoj, wanted to understand, while all things look good for not just you, but the entire IT industry, what have been your key learnings since the pandemic broke in India in March?
So I think 2 or 3 fundamental assumptions have changed, right? So if I look at from a customer perspective, I think more and more with remote working, I think we are seeing location being, I think more customers becoming agnostic to location. So I think we are seeing that trend change in terms of when we saw the growth of digital, we saw a lot of on-site centric movement because I think the perception was that a lot of it has to be done at the customer premise. I think that assumption has changed. I think people are questioning that. And I think we are seeing outcomes come through even with that change in assumption. So that's clearly one perspective. The second perspective is, I think, from our own internal delivery models. I think with almost 95% plus of our people working from home, I think many of these models have been stress tested in terms of, how do we drive outcomes, how do we keep productivity high, how do we engage on a regular basis with our 120,000 people. I think those are some of the things which I think there have been new paradigms found. I think those also will, I think, be sustainable in a longer term. The third one, which I would say, is that I think the concept of what is the baseline, I think that's changed. So if I look at our costs and the assumptions around costs, I think it is going back to zero based largely. And I think that's helping us in every area in terms of reimagining and reinventing what we thought was the norm for a long time. I think those three areas is something which I think are positives, which we'll take into the coming years, even though the situation around COVID will potentially normalize over a period of time.
Well, it's all looking strong for the entire IT industry, Manoj. Where do you think could be the challenges, if at all?
I think so if we really look at what is the number one challenge for the industry is, of course, finding the right talent and finding a group of people who can drive certain outcomes for the customer. So I think that's number one. So I think the challenges are around, as we go through this technology cycles, which are becoming shorter and shorter. How do we keep evolving? How do we keep changing the paradigm on how do we develop talent? So I think that's one of the things. From other perspective, from an economic perspective, potentially anything which impacts growth, global growth, I think is something which there's nothing on the horizon right now, because if I look at all the trends, I think they seem to be positive around the government's helping recovery, around progress in the vaccine. But clearly, I think overall IT spend is in a bit is correlated to overall growth. And so to me, that's another area where we'll have to see how strong the recovery is. As of now, it looks that it's going to be very fine over the next probably a few quarters. So that's the second thing to look at. And the third thing is really, I think eventually it is with the technology cycles becoming shorter, I think the ability to change very, very quickly has become very important. And so how do we keep building agility into our model, both from an operating perspective as well as a customer facing perspective? I think that's another thing which people have to develop, because that's one change which is happening much sooner than in the past. Over the last, I would say, 15 years, we've seen cycles becoming much shorter. So I think that's the other thing I would like to point out. So I think, but these are more broader level risks. But other than that, I think from an overall perspective, as I said, I think we are going through a period where a lot of signs are positive for the sector.
Manoj, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time out and so candidly chatting with us and being patient with all our questions. Good speaking with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, that's the word coming in from the Tech Mahindra management. What's the market up to? 13,500 here. About an 80-point uptick is what you're seeing on the Nifty futures, and a strong market breadth as well continues. BEL, REC, GMR Infra, PFC, it's an interesting list of winners out there. From within the Nifty, you've got ITC, which is holding up very smartly, Reliance contributing for a second consecutive day, HCL Technologies and UPL are the ones which are seeing some traction. We'll take a very quick break on that note, but come right back, lots more lined up.